Welcome to another training video from XMPRO. In this video, we will be discussing agents and their types. Agents are basically a piece of code or logic which gets encapsulated in XMPRO agent framework to become these blocks, which are configurable and reusable among different use cases. We provide a library of agents which is extensible, and our users have access to the framework that they can use to create their own agents and add them to the library here. As you can see, agents are categorized into different categories. There are some fundamental categories for agents, and then there are some which are derived from them. So I'll go through all of them one by one. So usually a stream starts with a listener. A listener is an agent which doesn't have any input endpoint. It would always only have an output. And that is primarily responsible to talk to third-party systems or outside the system here and fetch new data as it becomes available. Agents can be of two types. One is a polling agent, which basically has a polling interval on, which can be, let's say, 5 seconds, 10 seconds. The user is allowed to configure that. And that polling interval is what it uses to ping its data source or the third-party system to ask for new data. So, for example, a SQL listener would ask the database for new records that may have become available in last 10 seconds. And then it would push them down the stream to the next agent. The other type of listeners is the push-based, where they don't have any polling mechanism, but they just subscribe to an endpoint, and as soon as something is published on that endpoint, they receive it and they pass it down the line over here. An example would be an MQTT listener, for example, which subscribes to an MQTT broker. As soon as it receives a data point, it just sends it down to the next agent. Next category, which is very similar to the listeners, is of context providers. Context providers also do not have any input endpoint, hence they are usually also found at the start of your stream. How they are different to listeners is that context providers work with slow changing or context or reference data rather than live data, which listeners are listening for. Context providers just look at a reference data source, cache them in memory, and whenever live data which is coming at a speed comes through, they are able to provide that context via a join or some other way to those records. An example would be, let's say you have a device which is sending temperature or a pressure value. It wouldn't be sending its make, model, when was it last serviced, its location, etc. Those are the things which are not changing. So it would only be sending live data, which are the things which mostly change. Hence, you would receive that reference data from your context providers. You would do a join on, let's say, device ID, and that way you will be able to add context to your data. Next, we have transformations. Transformation agents basically are always found in the middle of your stream. They are required to change or transform the data. The key difference here is they would rarely or most probably never be talking to an outside system. They would always be internal in-memory agents which would receive data, change its shape or form based on how you have configured them, and then output them along. For example, there is a data conversion transformation. What it would do is it would allow you to change a data type of a certain attributes. For example, you may want to change a string to a number or vice versa. Then I'll jump on to action agents. Action agents are usually found towards the end of your data stream. They are your call to actions. They are again agents which talk to third-party systems outside this environment, and that is where you would mostly trigger a work order or send a notification, etc. Action agents usually have an input and an output endpoint, where they can perform the action they were supposed to, and then they would simply pass the same data point out on their output, so that if you want to create a pipeline or line up multiple action agents, you can do that and take multiple call to actions in one for the same data point. Then if we come back, we have a category for AI and machine learning, where you will find agents which are related to machine learning algorithms like binary classification, anomaly detection, etc. So you can use those if you want to call a model or get a prediction for your data set. Next, we also have functions, which are basically agents which call some mathematical function like Fourier transform or any signal filtering that you may have to do. Lastly, we have recommendations. These are action agents which classify under the recommendation category. Basically, these are the ones which you use to integrate to App Designer, where you can trigger some recommendations or resolve them as you may like. So that was a brief explanation of agents and their different types. Thank you so much for watching.